Okay, so there is system board. So BIOS is one of the chip that is sitting on the system board. Okay, after that, the BIOS, it has two things in it. Okay, it has BIOS perform post. It performs two functions. It performs post, P-O-S-T. Post is called power on self test. It's like a health check. Okay, it's like performing a health check. And then after the health check is performed, it transfers the control to master boot record. After the post is successful, it passes controls to MBR. MBR is called master boot record. So this is a BIOS. This is BIOS and select boot device. Okay, so probe hardware is post. Probe hardware is post. Okay, now what happens here is uh, so this part is called select boot device, right? This part. Um, okay, here. This is after the post is done. This is where the MBR comes in. MBR, master boot record. Okay, so let's see what is the MBR gonna do. Okay, so MBR this is sitting on the hard drive. So if you look at the hard drive here, you don't get to see this here, but there is like a little reserved partition. Remember this as a hard drive here. Okay, and this section here, master boot record, let me just look at this here. Master boot record section, it has records in it. It has codes, disk signatures, and all this information here. We are not really worried about that as a Linux engineers. You don't need to worry too much about it. Okay, so this is something done by the manufacturer, and the size is very small, 512 kilobytes. Sits on the drive, and it has 512 kilobytes. Okay, and then if it's sitting on a hard drive, right? So master boot record is called, it's also called bootloader. Okay, MBR has bootloader. With 2 stages. Master boot record has bootloader with 2 stages. Okay, bootloader is actually one word. This is also a code within the MBR. Okay, it has 2 stages. Okay, first stage, it just takes the control. When the post is giving the control, first stage takes the, when the post is successful, it passes control to MBR, right? Inside MBR, first stage of bootloader is the one who takes control from post. Okay, passes to second stage. Okay, second stage, so second stage of bootloader is sitting on /boot. Okay, so let's take a look where that is sitting there. Okay, so what is happening here is first stage of bootloader, so second stage of bootloader resides in /boot. So okay, right here it says loader. Let's see, go in there. Okay, so there is a configuration file. It's nothing but it's telling the system to read the load this file, and all these things are here. So look at, if you look closely here, this file is same as this file here. Okay, so this file is the file you're looking at is called Grub. Okay. So here, let me look at the diagram. So this is MBR. I kind of don't like this here. Let's go back. Oh, okay, this one is good. This is good actually. So first of all, when you turn the system on, BIOS, it does two things. It powers on the system and loads MBR. Okay, and MBR, when it's loaded, it takes control from BIOS. It's actually taking control from post here. So MBR has two functions. So let's see here. So BIOS performs post and then loads MBR. Okay, so take a closer look here. What is happening in MBR here? Okay, so we're gonna give some spaces here. So the BIOS activity is this is what is happening here. Performs the post, power on self test, and then BIOS perform post, power on self check, and then after post is successful, it passes control to MBR, master boot record. Okay, so within master boot record has two stage. Master record boot records has two stage. Okay, stage 1 receives control from post. Control from post and passes to second stage. And second stage, okay, second stage what it does is um, it is setting the second stage is sitting on the hard drive and it has a bootloader. Okay, first is take control and master MBR has bootloader with two stages. Okay, so first stage takes control from post and second stage of bootloader is sitting on. Okay, second stage is considered bootloader. Second stage is considered bootloader and it has two stages also. Second stage is considered bootloader. It's considered bootloader. Oh. Second stage is considered bootloader and bootloader has two stages. Okay, so now over here first stage control from post and passes to the second stage. And the second stage okay, stage 2 of the bootloader is sitting on slash boot. Okay, so the boot MBR is spread across the first partition and slash boot partition. Okay, I'm sorry, slash boot directory. Okay, so now what we're gonna see is the activity of the second stage. So stage 2 is considered a boot loader. First stage takes control from post. Okay, so second stage is taking and stage 2 of bootloader is sitting on VLMMZ. Okay. It loads Grub. GRUB. Okay, GRUB. Grand Unified Bus Loader. Okay, that's what it's for. Alright, I'm gonna make this nice and clean. Okay, is considered bootloader. It loads Grub. Okay, so this second stage is actually loading Grub here. Okay, now we are into Grub. So what is Grub? Oh no. Okay, so the menu that comes up, we could have more than one Grub, right? So in our last class, the menu that came up, right? Where is it at? So this is a Grub menu. See, I wrote here Grub menu. Okay, which one you want to select? So we have more than one Grub here. We'll know what Grub is, why we have more than one Grub when we're gonna do the update the system here. Okay, but second stage of bootloader is sitting on /boot and it loads Grub. Okay, what is Grub? Grub is called Grand Unified bootloader, I think. Yeah, Grand Unified bootloader, Grub. And what does a bootloader has? It has so bootloader now loads for in this example, what is it gonna load? It's gonna load this one is a Grub. It's gonna load the kernel. Okay, this is the kernel. It loads, bootloader now loads Grub. Okay, and at the same time it has this file here, right? Which one is active? Init rmfs img file. Also extracts the content of the file loads. So this is sitting in /boot, and this is also sitting in /boot. Okay. And then when it loads the grub, which is a VM Linux file, kernel file also loads from the, so it's going back and forth here. So I'm going to put a statement here, VM Linux kernel file loads from init ramfs image. Okay, and what happens now is the kernel file is, there is a kernel file inside init rms files. Okay, the kernel file is very confusing. Okay, don't worry about this too much, it's just informational. Kernel, because there are multiple things happening simultaneously. This is what is the process, though it's just informational. Kernel starts the first process of the systemd. Systemd is what? Our operating system. Okay. Now what happened here is now systemd is in control. Systemd is, this is our OS. Okay, this is our, now the OS is loading now. See how when you restart the system, everything, this is so many complex things are done before you get to start working on the operating system here. Okay, so the kernel starts the first process. Now the system is in control. Okay, now systemd processes. When the system is in control, what is systemd doing? Okay, so we're gonna take a look here. First thing is, it reads the configuration file. Files inside /etc systemd directory. What is the etc folder good for?
etc, I think, is a configuration files.
Yeah, so if you go into cd/etc systemd, so there are a lot of files in here. So let's see which file we need to go in. Let's go into this folder. So you see here, like it's reading the target and all this. There are a lot of things in here. One thing is leading to another thing. It's loading all these targets here. Okay. So I would say don't worry about it too much, but this is just informational here. And okay, so one example is etc fs tab for LVM. This is just one example. Okay, and second, while there, it also reads run level. Remember last week we looked at run levels, right? So now it's being used now. Run levels is being used now. So all these are complex stuff. It reads the run level file. Okay, which one is the run level file? Okay, so it reads this file here. Default.target. Okay, and whatever target is set in this file, it will bring that system into that mode. Okay, and most of the time is it either the graphical, if you are using graphical, or multi-user mode. Okay, and okay, so while there, it also reads the run level file etc systemd default target. Whatever the target is set to, system will load in that particular mode, multi-user mode or graphical.
Oh, I think I have a question, a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so there is any difference between BIOS and UEFI?
BIOS and UEFI is Actually, UFI BIOS is still there. Okay, BIOS is not uh, gonna go, but the UFI is kind of masking BIOS here. So it's they came up with the UEFI boot recently, like 10 years ago, so that system does not fail if the BIOS is having issue. The system doesn't affect the hard drive and all that. So it's like to boot into safe mode here. The BIOS is still there. It has not gone. Okay, so but in old days to
Okay,
get
that means
into the BIOS is easy, but with UFI there is extra steps to go into BIOS.
okay.
And
That means BIOS has some limitation.
yeah, UFI is good on the Windows system here, but what I've seen here in Linux environment is you still use BIOS.
Okay, got it.
So
Makes sense.
if the system is booting up, let me go here. Um, UFI is uh, mostly good with Windows. If you're gonna lose the Windows, then it's gonna protect that. But most of the time, the UFI is disabled. It's called, I think, Safe Boot on the Linux systems here. I mean, you really don't need that. So that's why I took it out earlier. UFI, we don't need that. Okay,
Okay,
so now whatever the target is, a system will load that particular mode, and now system is ready to use. Okay, all right. So to recap here, so the system is called BIOS. The moment you turn the power on, we should have something like power on here too, right? uh, so let me add power on. Okay, so this is power on. Uh-oh. Okay, so the system is powered on. The moment it's powered on, it goes into BIOS. BIOS has two stages, performs the post, and one of the second stage of post it loads the MBR. MBR has two stages, receive the control from post, and it does this, and then grub so grub MBR has two stages. It receives the control from post, and then it is considered a bootloader, second stage. So second stage, what it does is it loads grub, and grub in there it has VM Linux and init RMS files, so they load a bunch of stuff in there, and then after that all these things is happening, loads the necessary drivers and modules, start system on first process. Okay, so I need to add that here. Okay, and it loads necessary drivers and starts first process. No, actually this goes here. Okay, so all these things happening here loads the uh, okay, loads the necessary drivers and starts the first process of init. Read the configuration files. Okay, we all good. Okay, so this is what a boot process looks like, and this is just informational here. You don't have to remember. If somebody asks you about this, you could mention this. Okay, any questions?
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so next thing will be to do the system updates. There would have been the last topic for this course here, but unfortunately today I have some guests coming over. So what are we gonna do is we're gonna stop here, and tomorrow's topic is gonna be kind of big. So we will go through how to update the system. We'll go through how to do the system updates and all that, and then patching and all that. Those things you really need to know as an admin here, okay? So it's a big process. We'll cover that tomorrow. Next week, if everybody's ready, we could take a look at EC2 instance in AWS. Okay, so I told everybody to create a Amazon Web Services AWS account. So if you have not done it, you could still do it by next week. Okay, but
I already
today,
put my
There are so many options, so do you suggest any particular one?
for AWS?
There are so many of them when I was browsing for the AWS installing. There are so many. Do you suggest any particular one?
Yeah, I'll just show you which one here. Give me 1 second.